I understand why that makes people upset with the Democrats, but that isn't really what like Joe Biden was doing in the administration,
No.
right? And the lunatics are literally running the asylum on the right. So while I can understand the cultural critique of the left, like you've managed, I think, to ride this balance between I have this cultural critique of the far left.
And to me, that was an amazing question. Like, how do people take, random folks on TikTok, and some of it is crazy on purpose because they're trying to get views. So I get that. But they'll take the most craziest things on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, and paint that as the Democratic Party as a whole. All right, so we're here to do some more deep dive analysis on the Democratic Party, why they lost, the if, ands, and the buts, and at least somewhat of a future for the Democratic Party, and more so of why Republicans are trash and how that trash got them the presidency. Like, that's, to me, is still something that needs to be talked about. And as you see, we're going to be listening to Sam Harris and the Bulwark, the Bulwark podcast. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. And it's a really enlightening to hear a conversation that's not like jank where he's just screaming some nonsense, like hearing people who actually spent a few minutes thinking about the situation. And once again, if you are serious about politics and that political conversation, you need to be more engaged in politics and the ins and outs and the nitty gritty and the boring stuff more than just 4 years at a time. Like, you actually have to have these conversations. So when we are in, primaries or the election, you can actually have something to say. So that's why I love these type of conversations. So we got a few things to kind of cover. So we're just going to
So I want to get to that, the reckoning part of it, but just one more on this point, because you're I guess pointing out that your critique of these left institutions and the far left activists is in line with the critique that undergirds Elon's pivot to the lunacy that he's pushing now. But you didn't go full whole hog, right? Like, it's one thing to be like, I'm annoyed by the people that are, taping themselves to priceless works of art, or that are making people who are obviously one gender put their pronouns in their bio, or who are like just unnecessarily, having racially segregated meetings at schools and so there's a lot of lunacy on the far left, but like, it isn't. I understand why that makes people upset with the Democrats, but that isn't really what like Joe Biden was doing in the administration,
No.
right? And the lunatics are literally running the asylum on the right. So while I can understand the cultural critique of the left, like you've managed, I think, to ride this balance between I have this cultural critique of the far left without meaning I need to throw in with the Newsmax crowd. Those guys all failed at that balance. Like, how do you assess that?
And to me, that was an amazing question. Like, how do people take, random folks on TikTok, and some of it is crazy on purpose because they're trying to get views. So I get that. But they'll take the most craziest things on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, and paint that as the Democratic Party as a whole. The Democratic Party has a lot of flaws, trust me. But to formulate a crazy person on TikTok as that's Harris's or Joe Biden's position is crazy. But then when you hear literally Donald Trump saying he's going to use the military for the enemy within, then he describes who's the enemy within, which is left people, Democrats. No one says nothing. Everyone's like, "Oh no, he just talking crazy. He don't really mean that, right? Like, he's just." So once again, the standards is not on a level playing field, but no one cares. So let's hear Mr. Harris.
Well, it does come back to the intellectual integrity. described at the outset, and the failures of it. I mean, it's for whatever reason, I'm enough of a creature of the institutions to have internalized certain standards of scrupulousness, journalistically, academically, scientifically. I mean, I have a PhD in neuroscience and a background in philosophy before that, and if nothing else, that has drummed into me certain standards of intellectual embarrassment that I don't want to touch. Right? I mean, it's just, and you have to be able to keep more than one grotesque object in view at a time, right? So to be convinced that the left has lost its way, as many of us are, is need not make you blind to the fact that Trump and Trumpism poses a real threat to our democracy, right? I mean, Trump is a demagogue. He's the most
and even
prolific
if you don't
liar
actually
we've ever
think
seen.
that, even if actually you don't believe that, and you think Trump leaves in 2028, again, looking, I just think that,
and let me express this before I forget. But one thing that Cornel West has said that has been stuck in my mind forever is making sure that you base your conversation or just your standards, your morals, everything into an intellectual integrity and a moral honesty. Yes, I'm going to get that tattoo one day. You know what I'm saying? Like, that just right there. And I believe, just thinking about that, if you try to base all your conversations, it could be anything. It doesn't have to just be politics, into that, in a intellectual integrity and a moral honesty, you're always 9 times out of 10 going to find yourself on the right side of that conversation. You know what I'm saying? Very few people can point at you and say, hey, you're a hateful person. You might have a few little weirdos here and there, but like, hey, you hate all gay people. You hate all, like, no. If you operate in integrity, in a moral honesty, you should 9 times out of 10 be in a conversation to where you don't have to pretend. You don't have to be labeled as a crazy person. You're just being honest, and it's easy for you to operate in that. Because when you're pretending to be something you're not, once people start digging in, you have no legs to stand on, because that's not really you. But if you operate on what you truly believe in operating in integrity and in a moral honesty, 9 times out of 10, people are going to understand and relate to you. So
these smart people.
Let's go to the next one here. And once again, if you guys want to watch this entire thing, hopefully I can remember to put it into my details here so you can go watch it. But this is an hour and 3 minutes long. I will be here literally forever if we cover this whole thing, because I could talk a lot, 9:30. Let's see. Boom, boom, boom. We'll start right here.
And it's just like, Trump is so plainly stupid and so plainly erratic, and like, even if you don't believe any of the fascist stuff, he's just none of these people would put Trump in charge of any of their venture capitalist businesses or the principal of their kids' school or any of that, like on its face, and yet they throw in with him. So there is the radicalization element. The far left has made me so upset that I'm gonna throw in with the enemy. What about the financial side of it? Like, is he just a vessel for, they know that he won't regulate AI and crypto, and Elon's various companies will now be the ones that are not tariffed? What about just a straight old-fashioned financial grift? Might that explain some of it?
I think that explains the behavior of some people, but no one that I actually know comes to mind on that list. I mean, I can well imagine that's true of some people who I don't know, but for somebody like Elon,
Andreessen,
he's already
or any of the crypto people?
I mean, I think Andreessen is yes. I think he's focused on regulation, and he didn't like the hostility toward crypto that the Biden administration seemed to show. Yeah, so perhaps there's some of that, but with somebody like Elon, he talked about this publicly, and I really have no doubt. I take his words at face value. I mean, the trans issue with his own son, now daughter, where he felt.
And before he goes into that, because that leads into a good point, is there is financial reasoning why billionaires, millionaires back more Republicans than they do Democrats. Democrats will tax that ass. You making millions, you making billions, you gonna feel it, which I do agree. You know what I'm saying? Because me making the little money that I do and I get taxed and I feel it, hey, I don't give a fuck if you make Tesla, if you made the Broncos Stadium, I don't care. You better get taxed, brother. We all in this America together. You know what I'm saying? But there's a reason why those, corporate individuals support the Republicans, because tax cuts and deregulating everything. You know what I'm saying? And when it comes to Elon Musk and, the whole Bitcoin thing, which I don't give two cares about, it's a reason why they call it that organization Doge. Doge, which is a cryptocurrency, Doge. And when they announced that, oddly enough, hey, I don't know if this is a conspiracy, but as soon as they announced that, guess what happened to its stock? Yep. There it is. Hey, it rose. You know what I'm saying? So I wouldn't be surprised if I seen deregulations of crypto, of a bunch of things that only benefit the rich, the 1%. So let's not kid ourselves.
Face value. I mean, the trans issue with his own son, now daughter, where he felt like a school brainwashed his kid with this
woke mind virus.
Yeah, basically, the woke mind virus, and the southern border. The insanity at the southern border, which
I can't be made to think.
So before they get into the border thing, which once again, I can see why people would be against trans people, gay people, and anything in between if it comes into their home. If it's something that they have to live with and not just see on TV or just other people, they could feel some sort of way. And I believe that's what happened with Elon Musk. He didn't like what his daughter is doing or the decisions that she's making. So now he has a grudge against all gay people, all trans people. And once again, what's the party that hates trans people? What's the party that hates gay people? There you go. It's not like he's, he likes Trump's, policy when it comes to helping, which is not a thing. So I just literally got to make this up. But, helping the working class, or making sure that healthcare is affordable to everybody, or making sure that, the immigration problem is getting resolved by the root issue. Like, no, that's not a thing. He doesn't care about that. He's only worried about things that only affect him. And unfortunately, he has billions of dollars to make sure that happens just for him, not caring about anybody else in America. So there you go.
I think that they care about the southern border. Regular people who live in Arizona might care about the southern border, but I cannot be made to think that Silicon Valley billionaires or public intellectuals or writers for the free press actually care about the southern border. I can't.
No, I care about it, and I believe that they would. I mean, it seems insane to
enough to be for
who's coming into the country,
or to even consider being for Trump.
No, well, but that's the thing. If you're
and that's. I was going to say that's the thing, but he already said that's the thing. But literally, that's the thing. Like, if you really cared about the border and you want to make sure that whatever situation is going on at the border, people are being treated humanely because they're humans, So, hey, great job. And making sure that policies and enough funding is going to the situation. Hey, I understand that if you come into this country illegally, I'm sorry, but you got to make sure you're coming through the proper channels in the proper way so you can come here for work or come here for X, Y, and Z and become a citizen. I'm down for that. But to sit here and think for 2 seconds that Trump or any Republican official cares about immigrants, you're an idiot. They do not care, because if they really cared, he would have put out some sort of legislation, not no executive order. I don't care about those. He would have put some real bills together, something tangible that can last. He would have brought Democrats to the table, Republicans, and say, hey, we're going to come up with something to, X, Y, and Z. But he didn't. And then when Democrats attempt to do something, which if you liked it or not, that's a conversation. But when the Democrats attempt to do something like that, Trump shuts it down. Oh no, but he really cared. No. He doesn't. Stop playing yourself. You ain't playing me. But you can play yourself if you want, but that speaks on you then.
Not paying attention to how despicable Trump is and Trumpism is, and how antithetical it is to any kind of sane political culture in our democracy. If that's not something that you're tracking, and you just think you're taking him seriously but not literally, right? If you've bought that line, right, that he's just if you're just entertained by him and not repelled by him, if you think, I mean, the truth is the guy is genuinely entertaining. He can be genuinely funny. I
don't even think that. I think we're laughing at him and not laughing with him. Like Bill Burr, funny guy. I'm laughing with him. Donald Trump, I'm literally laughing at him. So those are two different things. So, but okay, whatever. I get it.
He brings the optics of celebrity to every political moment that almost no one else does. And if you're taken in by all that, like I have two very close friends who voted for Trump, despite the fact that I've tried to perform an exorcism on them for
would they put their kids in a
years.
School where Trump is the principal? Like that's, I guess, it's a key question, because it's like, are they fooled by him enough that they would actually trust him in real life, or is
they're fooled by him? There are many reasonably smart people, but who are not tracking the details we're tracking, who haven't taken any kind of inventory of his lies, who think it's all harmless, good fun when he exaggerates, how many stories he has in Trump Tower, etc. When he has an apartment that's 15,000 square feet and he says it's 30,000 square feet, that's just a kind of a charming affectation.
Sure.
And they don't track how that level of dishonesty contaminates everything in his world, right? They just think it's entertaining, and they're not. And they're actually. I mean, one thing that happened is that Mark Burnett successfully marketed this man to all of America for 12 long years on The Apprentice, as a business genius, right? Whereas he is in fact a business fraud. And now, ironically, he is a real billionaire, at least on paper, because of how successfully he's grifted his cult-like following, and put himself atop a meme stock of a fake business. But most people think, okay, this guy is a legitimate business genius who's super practical and is just going to get things done. He just wants to disrupt things, just as we do in Silicon Valley, right? He's just a disruptor. He doesn't have time for the norms and usual guardrails of politics as usual. But we don't want that. We don't want a government that spends $10,000 to buy a toilet seat, and you're going to bring Elon and Vivek in there to clean house, and it's going to be wonderful. If you're not tracking how morally insane it is to elect someone to the presidency who trusts Putin more than our intelligence services and will say so on television, all you see is the possible upside of the bull in the china shop.
Yeah.
And
so this takes us to the
posit. And that's why I say people need to educate themselves further than just during election times. Like, if you're really serious about moving the Democratic Party to a more progressive party, you got to deal with the details, the nitty gritty. You got to put on those work boots, get the biggest shovel you can find, and just get the digging. Hey, just keep on digging. Because that's the only way, one, you're going to educate yourself, and two, be able to hold yourselves in those important, substantive conversations. But no, if you're just working on a surface level type of, news and stuff, then you're going to be that person voting for Trump because, he said one of his policies is make the economy great again. No details, no bullet points, no numbers. Just make the economy great again. What does that mean? But no, let's grill Harris on being detailed as possible. And she did. Like I said a million times, I read her 9-page policy plan and it was boring, but I read it. It was 9 pages. If you go to Trump, everything is just so generic. But yeah, people are like, he's going to make the economy great, but nothing else. That's it. So there you go.
The reckoning, the things that you argue that Dems should be thinking about as far as reflecting on how they got to a place where this man could be elected again twice. And there are some elements of what you said that I really agree with, and others I guess I want to hash out because I'm not as sure about. But why don't you give a shorter version for people that haven't listened to it of what you think the core failings of the left were that were revealed in the election?
Well, some of it has come tumbling out already. I mean, I think that you.
But I guess which elements of what has come tumbling out already do you feel like are most relevant to the electoral defeat?
Well, I do think that trans activism, if nothing else, I mean, there are other variables here. I mean, you can certainly say that Kamala Harris's loss was overdetermined. I mean, the incumbents everywhere lost globally. There was inflation. There was immigration. I mean, there were all these issues. Mm-hmm. Any one of which, or any two of which, had they changed, it might have given us a different result. But what trans activism has done to the Democratic Party is truly a sight to behold. And most Democrats, at least in my experience, are unaware of how much brand damage has been done to us. And they were unaware, and many are still unaware of the ads that Trump was running to great effect. I mean, in some markets, he was spending over a third of his ad spend on an ad that went something like, she's for they, them, he's for you, right? And explicitly invoking her apparent support back in 2020 for transgender reassignment surgeries for incarcerated illegal immigrants and at taxpayer expense, right? So like that policy, the fact that she couldn't sister soldier that policy and express in the current campaign why, how her thinking has changed on that point. A point which really is like Onion article level comedy in our current politics, right? I mean, it's insane to think that's how we should be spending our money. But she couldn't disavow it. All she said, as you probably remember in one of those interviews, is, "I will follow the law. I will follow the law." And she kept repeating this phrase, "I will follow the law," without offering a single sane syllable on the issue of gender dysphoria and trans activism and the way in which it has bent almost everything left of center in our politics in a way that's unacknowledged. I mean, even like Latinx, right? Latinx is this insane rebranding of immigrants from Latin America that
and even everything that he's talking about. Well, especially with the Latinx, like my wife, she's Hispanic, and she laughed at that. Like, don't you ever call me Latinx? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just layers of unnecessariness, which I don't think that's a word. Unnecessariness. I don't know if it is or if it's not. I just made up my own word. But what Republicans are good at doing is taking anything and making it into a boogeyman and using it as a weapon. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it should be conversations when it comes to trans activists and gay activists. Like, it needs to be those conversations, but they weaponize it so well to where, like, even if you say, hey, let's have that conversation because this has consequences for people, it makes you look like you want to trans every kid, or you're okay with little tiny kids looking at porn or something, like they will label you as whatever because they have no shame in their game. They will label you everything under the sun. If you even hint at wanting to have those conversations, why? You know what I'm saying? Like that doesn't make any sense. So once again, we need to learn how to take back these conversations so we can, the adults in the room can have those conversations.
That only 3% of them have any affinity for, right? And they got 97% of Latinos don't want this new label. This came out of a trans activist, lab somewhere, and probably on the Berkeley campus. Harris lost a majority of Hispanic men in this election, and in some counties a majority of men and women, and Latinx had something to do with it, right? So we need a hard reset on this issue in Democratic politics, among others.
So here's the element that I agree with, and you went on about this a little bit more. So I'll paraphrase you, but it's just that this idea, the elements of the identity of putting identity politics first and being so responsive to it, being responsive to Trump's offenses against it. You talked about how the Puerto Rican garbage joke, whatever, everybody freaks out about it. Clearly nobody cares about that. Clearly Hispanic people broadly don't care. Maybe small pockets of people in Puerto Rican communities cared, but they're overwhelmed by those who did not care. And centering identity politics, I believe you used the phrase identity politics is dead. And I agree with that. The thing that I struggle with in listening to that answer is it's just obviously Kamala Harris should not have been for sex changes, transitions for prisoners or undocumented immigrants, and that's silly. And the whole Latinx thing was obviously silly. But she didn't use Latinx. Joe Biden didn't. She didn't campaign on trans issues, really. She campaigned on economic issues. She didn't really engage in the fight on that issue.
And just like I said before, Harris didn't speak anything about her being black or her being more black than anyone, or her no, a lot of these issues that a lot of people keep complaining about Harris is something that she didn't even fight for. She didn't even bring up. She only talked about her blackness when Trump put it into question. You know what I'm saying? Then everyone and their mama is talking about how black she is, how many black friends she has, what black school did she go to, what black songs does she know. Everything started questioning things that she wasn't even putting in the forefront. But once again, Republicans are so good at dominating the conversation, and Democrats only know how to play defense. And every time you're playing defense, you don't have an opportunity to explain to the American people what they need to hear, because you're too busy answering Republican questions, which are stupid, which should be no attention paid to. But the Democrats are so busy trying to play defense. That's all we see, and now we're here now. So
it's an issue that doesn't affect that many people, necessarily not as many as might be affected by limits on reproductive rights or other things that Donald Trump might do. So on balance, how does that explain it? I can't, you know what I mean? Sure.
Because she didn't disavow it. I mean, it's not enough to no longer commit the sin that everyone has you on videotape committing 4 years ago. You have to give some account of how you've changed, why you've changed, how it makes sense that you've changed, and for that change to be credible. What she was successfully cast as was a kind of woke Manchurian candidate who wouldn't say anything sensible on these issues, and who you could reasonably fear that once she got into office, she would rule like a blue-haired activist maniac, because she's been programmed that way. And again, she will not say anything to disavow those orthodoxies, right? She could, in the span of 500 words, she could have performed an exorcism on all of that. She could have said, listen, I've been vice president for nearly 4 years. I have learned a lot. Back in 2020, there was a pendulum swing in the Democratic Party that deranged a lot of things, and I was caught up in that. And I just have to tell you that now I've come to understand that the trans issue is way more complex than certainly I understood at the time. There are real cases of gender dysphoria for which it's totally appropriate to have compassion, and we should do everything we can to protect people in those situations and make them comfortable in their bodies and make them comfortable in society. And how to do that best is still an open conversation. But there's also this, on the other side, there's a real problem with social contagion, especially among teenage girls and tween girls. And I am no more comfortable with an epidemic of double mastectomies among 16-year-olds in our country than any critics of my former politics might be. And so we need to have a searching conversation about how best to respond to that. And laws in Western Europe have already begun to change around these issues, and medical recommendations have begun to change. And our own medical organizations are now having to play catch up with all of that, and they're being slow to do it. And I, as president, I will look into all of that. That would have been completely sane. It would have.
Hey, simple. You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't demonize trans or gay people, but he didn't say, hey, like, we're going to just give free sex changes to every illegal immigrant, like, in the world. Like, it was a balance of, this is an important conversation that we need to have. And unfortunately, this is above my understanding. But, I'm going to make sure I have people in the room who understand, who love people, and want to make sure that we're integrating trans people, gay people into our community. Makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, but Harris didn't do that. I mean, not this Harris, but Kamala Harris didn't do that. And to me, that's part of her elitist type of attitude. Just stick to the bullet points and, don't waver. Don't go outside of that bullet points, because then, I don't know, you're going to look weak or weird or something. Like, I don't know, but good point.
Would have taken all the stink off of it. And if it offended some activist maniacs, we should no longer care, right? That's the rebuild that the Democratic Party needs to accomplish. And Harris should have attempted to accomplish it in her campaign. Now, it might have been impossible. She only had 100 days, and she would have had a lot of woke maniacs attacking her as a result. But she lost. So anything would have been worth a roll of the dice.
Yeah, I guess. Look, I don't care about whether woke maniacs would have yelled at her. Sure, I think what you just said probably would have helped. I guess I do wonder if the problem isn't bigger, though. Isn't it a cultural and an information environment problem? Like, she did stand on a debate stage with him. She stood next to him.
Yeah.
Like, she sounded, she dominated him. She sounded more normal. She sounded more mainstream. He had plenty of chances to deliver these attacks, to make her seem like a woke far left liberal. He was unable to do so. And it did nothing. It didn't break through. No, is that because the information environment that people are in, and going back to your old expertise, the systems in our brains have been broken to such a degree that, like, her giving an answer such as that would only have reached the same people she already reached, which are college educated people that are open to, like, hearing that kind of nuanced conversation.
It's possible, but honestly, I do feel like some of the people we've been talking about who've been radicalized, who've gone all in for Trump, despite how noxious a person he is. Some of those people, many of those people, perhaps not all of those people, but still many, have enough of a intact, moral operating system that they might have been successfully caught by a Democrat making sane noises on this topic, right? I mean, the thing that radicalized Elon is that every time this issue came up, specifically the issue of gender dysphoria and trans policy, what he got was just hammered by the orthodoxy, which is any demurral on this point, any hesitation to affirm the gender identity of your child at the earliest possible opportunity is not only a sign of bad parenting, it's bigotry, right? And it's you're culpable, as you're some kind of demon to not see the wisdom and compassion is only pointing in one direction, and that's toward, the instantaneous medicalization of this new self-concept on the part of your child who's not old enough to drive a car, right?
And he brings a good point, and maybe I'm guilty of some of that too, but it's different. It's different people that we're dealing with. When people are honestly may not be informed about the world around them when it comes to trans people, gay people, if they're dealing with something within their family, so that they're going to be freaking out, so they need people to kind of walk them through, or just educate them on what the reality is. But then you have people that will use the situation, the cultural hot topics, and use that as an opportunity to demonize, to benefit them in whatever way. Those are the two different. And I try not to go heavy handed on the people who just don't know. You know what I'm saying? If you're dealing with something within your family, and you don't have an understanding, or you just don't care, then I shouldn't just go all in on you. Okay, I get that. And if I have, my bad, player. But the individuals like a Ben Shapiro, a Matt Walsh, who do understand, but still manipulate the conversation into a way to where now they're demonizing people to benefit them, to get more views, and those kind of people I have no sympathy for. I will go all in and all in every day on those types of people. So to me, we shouldn't lump the Matt Walshers with people who honestly are going through some things with friends, family, whatever the case is, and they just need more information, or more therapy, or more help, or whatever the case is. Don't lump those two types of people together.
That's the orthodoxy again, and it's coming from not just activists. It's coming from the New York Times up until 15 minutes ago. It's coming from Harvard. That's intolerable, right? It's insane, and it's intolerable, right? Because it's patently insane. And so, if we had some Democratic politicians who had been willing to stand in the breach, and if Kamala Harris had been one of them, and had the courage to say enough with this insanity, the reality is somewhere more in the middle of our political discourse here. It's not over with the bigots, right? We're not bigoted against people with gender dysphoria. We want them to be happy in our society. We want them to have political equality. But no, watching biological men punch women in the face in MMA contests or anywhere else is not a solution to their problems, right? That's not that's clearly an aberration. And the fact that no one, literally no one in the Democratic Party who cared about their political future had the courage to say anything sensible on that topic until the 11th hour or even beyond it. And Kamala Harris just kept mum, like she had been, literally the way she conducted herself in those interviews, it was like someone came to her before the cameras were rolling and said, listen, you're going to be asked about transgender issues. You're going to be asked about the southern border. You're going to be asked about all of these things that you don't want to talk about. Under no circumstances can you admit that you've changed your mind, right? Whatever you do, you're going to pivot. You can talk about Trump. You can change the subject. You can close your eyes. You can storm off the set. You can do anything you want, but under no circumstances can you admit that your thinking has changed at all on on any of these topics. Okay, and then let's go. Cameras rolling, and that's what she did. It's like she thought someone was going to bring her the head of her children's heads in a Birkin bag at the end of the interview if she broke this rule, right? And she was so tongue-tied and impossible and incapable of saying anything sensible for the span of a single sentence that, understandably, anyone right of center looked at that and said, okay, I don't know what's going on there, but she's not being honest about what she believes, right? She's not. If you give this woman power, she is going to be a puppet pulled every which way by the activist class in the Democratic Party. The only way to have removed that concern would have been to have gone head on against it and to have been articulate on these topics, to have spoken without fear at length, right? To have gone on Joe Rogan's podcast and to have said, Joe, I'll talk about anything you want. I got 4 hours. What do you want to talk about? Yeah. Right. The reason why she didn't do that is because everyone understood. I'm not giving inside information. I'm imagining what was almost certainly so. Everyone understood that it would very likely be a disaster, right? Because she would. It's not that she can't speak in English. I'm sure she is perfectly articulate when she is actually just speaking her thoughts. But because she, from a campaign point of view, felt that she had to play at all moments some kind of 4-dimensional chess with a half a dozen woke talking points and third rails, it becomes an impossible rhetorical exercise, right? Joe would say, "Okay, what do you think about trans issues? Give me that. You were for gender reassignment surgery for illegal aliens in prison at taxpayer expense. Why are you no longer for that? If you're no longer for that,
should have got into
it would have been impossible." It's like,
and he brings up a good point, and that's a good spot to end right there. Like I said, if you guys want to watch the entire interview, it's 1 hour 3 minutes. Go ahead, knock yourself out. Make sure you watch this video first and then go and check that out. But once again, when it comes to the Democratic Party, unfortunately, yes, I know the Democratic Party ain't shit. I get it, but the Democratic Party ain't worse shit, but the Republican Party is even worse. I don't even give them the opportunity, okay? And right now, we don't have any valuable third party that could win. They still need to build that up. So during the meantime, the Democratic Party is all we have to participate in this political conversation, this political game that we're all in. And I do believe if we can bully any party into being more progressive for the actual American people, it's the Democratic Party. The Republicans are so far right, it's not coming back. Okay, you cannot see that party on the horizon. They are so far gone. So that's the reality of it. So once again, if you guys agree or disagree with anything that I said in this video, if you watched this entire video, let me know in the comments down below so I can give you a virtual hug. There you go. Hey, there you go. There's your hug. So once again, hit that Discord link so we can have our one-on-one talk. And like always, let's have that conversation.